name is Brandon, and over the past year, the Delight Cafe team and I have traveled across the U.S. researching this rapidly growing industry of CBD products. What we have found throughout the industry were products that were inconsistent in dosage and used ingredients that weren't even lab tested. Products with chalky textures, bitter aftertaste, and worst of all, confusion among the CBD consumers. That's why we created Delight Cafe. A 15 milligram, lab-tested, all-natural, water-soluble hemp CBD powder pack. It's odorless, colorless, and tasteless. Add it to your favorite drink of choice, wherever, whenever, on the go. Quickly find your calm, your balance, and your delight when you need it most.
Hi, this is Brett Gordon of Businesses Are People Too.
And my name is Brandon Croucher of Delight Cafe.
And this is One Square at a Time, where we take kind of a king's approach on a chessboard of being able to move in life and leadership one square at a time, sometimes forward, sometimes back, sometimes to the side.
Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button, guys, and ring that bell.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Brandon Croucher. How you doing out there in CLE land?
I am well. I was showing you I cut my head shaving my head today. It hurts. Like the headset's right on it too, so I feel even more like a pansy right now, but I'm okay with being like that. It hurts. You don't know what it's like to have to shave the bald.
I know how it's like to shave my balls, but
oh my God. Just because it's Deadpool doesn't mean we get to go into that. Oh my God, it's the Men in Black is what the squirrel says. Whoop! So, Mr. Brett Gordon, we are here. It is Thursday night. It is 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's right, EDT, not EST. For those of you who think it's EST, it's EDT. I've been yelled at. But I am over here in Cleveland, Ohio. We are about to have dinner after this show, but for Brett Gordon, he's at lunchtime on the West Coast, and he's out there having a good old time, ready to talk about the fun, the good, and the awesome Mr. Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool. I am excited. Brett Gordon, Businesses Are People Too, Brandon Croucher, Delight Cafe, and this is One Square at a Time.
Well, Brandon, this is the movie that you so wanted to do the One Square at a Time on. It was a movie that I had not seen before, and it was one that I had actually started a couple times, and I was like, oh man, this violence, the way that things were going, it was like, I'm not sure this is going to vibe with me, if you want to call it that. And after you chose to do this, then I said, okay, I gotta watch it. So I started watching it, and all of a sudden I was like, wow, you know what? This movie, if you can kind of get through maybe the initial shock of the violence and so forth that's involved in it, you really start to see the meaning behind it.
All right. So what's the meaning?
The meaning is that, many times in life, we feel like we get screwed, but what we're actually doing is finding a new way to deal with the challenges of life.
Am I a challenge?
Are you a challenge? Well, when you accidentally cut your head when shaving and then complain about it on air, yeah, you're a pain in the butt.
I try. I do my best.
But, that to a certain extent, especially if you were concerned about the way it looked and, is that going to make my girlfriend not want to hang around with me? Then it would be more like what Wade Wilson was feeling when he got his face all scarred up, right?
Correct.
And at that point in time, it was like a complete change in his life. He was trying to do something. He had cancer, right? And he was trying to be able to get some sort of a treatment so that he could continue to live. And especially because he had this relationship with his girlfriend, fiance, and he really was trying to do whatever he could so that he could spend as much time with her as possible, right?
Correct.
And then things went wrong. And it went wrong and it went right, but he didn't really recognize the right part of it until he could get over his own belief and self-image.
Correct.
So and this is something that people experience in life all the time. We see things in ourselves when we look in the mirror that others don't. Oftentimes, hi, Lena, nice to see you out there from Sweden. I really appreciate you tuning in. Always love having relatives and people from outside of our country. So it's amazing when you tune in from Sweden. And I know it's late at night, so thank you very much. Hey, Bradley, nice to see you. Jacob, wow. Actually, I should say Jakob, because that's really the way I should pronounce it when I'm talking more like the way they do in Sweden. Jakob, he's a super amazing guy. When he came out here many years ago and hung out with my brother and I, we had a blast going out drinking, partying, and now he's at work in the middle of the night. So,
and he's listening to you?
And he's listening to me.
Wow.
So that's another amazing relative that I have over in Sweden. It's fantastic. I can't wait until sometime I get a chance to go back there, hopefully in the next couple of years, to be able to reconnect with everybody over there. But anyhow, going back to kind of Wade Wilson and the challenges that we have, that oftentimes when we look in a mirror, we see flaws in us that others don't. We see the wrinkles under the eyes. We see the little scar from something that happened when we were a kid. We see the look in our eyes, which we feel looks bad. But when other people look at you, it's like, wait a second, you're gorgeous. You're amazing. You've got the strength. There we go, Sweden. And Deadpool. We are most of the time we are our own worst critics, and this is what happened here with Wade Wilson when he got the scarring. Then it was all about, how can I cover it up? I don't think that my girlfriend is going to love me the way that I am. He thinks that if he shows his face to her, she's going to reject him. Mm-hmm. And as a result, he creates this mask. He goes through all these kind of gyrations. He's got this anger in his heart that is overtaking him, and he's going through these senseless things of violence. And then he realizes that he basically can't die anymore, right?
Right.
I mean, he abuses himself purposely, also recognizing that he can't die. So what the hell? I'm just going to do it.
Right.
And we oftentimes, if you want to call it self-flagellate, and you're like, what does that mean? Like when, in the old days, they used to take whips and whip their back as part of, paying for their sins and stuff. It was part of a religious type thing. And we do that, but we don't do the whip thing. We do it in here. We do it in here. And we punish ourselves for the way that we look at ourselves.
I agree.
It's not the way that others look at us. And when Wade finally figured out, he took off his mask and he showed himself to his girlfriend, she's like,
okay.
There was a bit of a shock. And she's like, it may take a little bit to get used to. But then after they kind of got a little bit more reacquainted and then they kissed, then all of that about his face went away. That had nothing to do with the relationship that they had. And in fact, what it showed is that for 2 years, he didn't even let her know that he was really alive. And that hurt her because she thought he was dead or gone or whatever. And it was completely unnecessary.
It was
2 years of this amazing abuse, self-abuse, and so forth that he was experiencing, and 2 years that she couldn't be with him, and they couldn't be together, all because of his self-image and his projection of his self-image to her as what he thought she would perceive of him.
Correct.
And we do that all the time. This is what we do as people. We tend to do this. Now, it's something that we some people do a little bit, some people do a lot of it. So we have to really start to recognize that, our perception of ourselves is not often the same as others' perception of us. And when we do this projection thing, we tend to project a picture that's worse than the reality. So taking control of our minds, taking control of our self-image is one of the keys to being able to appreciate others and to allow others to love us. Because oftentimes we don't feel like we love ourselves, and then we project that others won't love us, and then we don't give them the opportunity to love us. And then we go around life and saying we aren't loved. Well, yeah, we would be, except that we have kind of put a barrier in there, and that barrier is our perception of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that was part of the big story that I got out of, watching Deadpool. And like above my head here where he's making a heart, now he's really starting to, appreciate more of what life is about. And life really is about love and significance and appreciation. I honestly think the reason so many people love Deadpool is because they can relate to the very human flaws. Exactly. There's hope in knowing that someone so flawed can change the world. Now, the only thing that I would say a little bit different than that, Jess, is that there's hope in knowing that our perception of flaws of ourselves really is the key. We're not necessarily flawed, like from the outside. Like, yes, we may have scars. That doesn't mean that we're flawed, right? Mm-hmm. It just means that we're different, and everybody's different. It's the way that we perceive it. And then there is also that others do perceive things. I mean, I have seen, and even
I'm having internet issues. I don't even know if you can hear me.
People that are in pain or are not able to enjoy what I think is the enjoyable life. That's not necessarily the one that is most enjoyable. And Brandon, I know that this was a tough past week for you with it was your niece, right?
Yes. Sorry, my internet went out there for a second. Yes.
Yeah, and now your internet's really gone out. There we go, back again. Kind of back again. But anyhow, Branda's niece had some physical challenges, and yet she lived in a very happy world of her life, right, Brandon? And she brought happiness to others' lives. But when others looked at her, they may have said, "Oh, how sad, how sorry, look at this, she's flawed." No, she was in a different reality than the one that we see. And her reality was one where she was happy and bringing joy to people, even with what she had, because she didn't necessarily look at that as a disability.
Correct. And I think it also
separates. When we have disabilities, it creates abilities that we never would have experienced if we had all of our abilities, right?
Mm-hmm. I also think that it helps that, just like Ryan Reynolds and his character, he didn't want to go out, he didn't want to do anything, he didn't want to see anything, and that's because of the fact that he image retracted. I don't know what Jessica posted, but it was retracted. I was all excited. But like, my cousin didn't know anything else that was different. She didn't know anything different from the pain she was going through. She didn't know that people didn't have color, that didn't see things. She didn't know anything different than that. And she just lived the way she was supposed to. Like, she had no one else to look up to because she couldn't. And Ryan Reynolds didn't know any better because everybody else told him how ugly he is and how he doesn't die and all that for being Deadpool. And I actually agree with Jessica. Like when you say so many people love Deadpool is because they can relate to his very human flaws. And honestly, I agree with that. And I also think that there's a part of it that the person that's playing it, Ryan Reynolds, draws a crowd just with his name, and he knows that. And he did not like his reputation with how Green Lantern ended, and he wanted to be able to be something better than Green Lantern. And he turns around and asks to be Deadpool. And I think that drew people's attention to how unique this character could be, because if there is going to be anyone that plays him, Ryan Reynolds makes sense with his personality, like the way his movie personality is. It's interesting how the movie relates to our times, though, of where we are in life and all that, because with this movie, it played a crucial role for my age bracket and him being the actor, because I wanted to see that connection with the character. I wanted it to be a superhero that was different, because truth be told, I don't care about any of the other ones. I'm not a superhero kind of guy. And yeah,
you're my superhero.
Thanks, buddy. You're my superhero, Jessica. You're my superhero, Brett. But Jessica says, let me try that again. That's what I mean. We see ourselves as flawed. But seeing it in someone else helps us see the possibility. And
that's true.
That is true.
That is absolutely true.
Yes. And I knew that's where you're going. I got you, girl.
And it's really interesting because, this movie was made before this whole COVID thing and people wearing masks all the time. And he used the mask to kind of hide his face, to hide kind of from the repercussions of the actions that he was taking, things along those lines. Nobody necessarily knew who he was when he was doing these things and so forth. And now we have a world where many people are hiding behind a mask, intentionally or unintentionally. They're hiding pain behind this mask. They're hiding pain behind the mask of being on the camera or being, as we were talking about this morning, oftentimes cyberbullying. You're behind the mask of the internet, behind the mask of social media. And I think masks, everybody wears masks. Let me put it this way, in life. When we go to church, we wear a mask that matches what we think people in the church want us to look like. When we go to work, we wear the mask of the position or the group that we work with at work. When we're at home, we wear the mask of either, the parent and the adult, or we wear the mask that we may technically be almost literally and figuratively naked at home and wearing the mask that we feel that we fit best in that environment. So we all wear masks. We all have multiple personalities, and they tie to these masks that we wear. So recognizing that and then embracing it, as opposed to
who's your ultimate personality, Pratt?
Who's my ultimate personality or alternate?
Alternate.
My alternate personality. I don't know. I got a bunch of them.
I've never heard you admit that.
Personality, just like my leadership style, my personality is somewhat situational. That's why Jenny, I love what you're saying here. Maybe that's why I'm happiest at home. I live alone and I don't have to wear any mask.
Love that.
I think that can be very, very true for some, and others, even when they're with themselves, they wear a mask. And this is kind of where I get back into, the BS of your BS, the BS of your belief systems. When you're by yourself, you have your belief systems that you follow and that you go along with. But actually, it may be a mask that we wear because somebody told us in the past this is the way that we should be. And this happens a lot, especially like when you're growing up. It was interesting. I was just with my sister and my nephew just before the show. And finally, my sister said, he's now 13 years old, so I cannot control who and what he does. I have provided that guidance, or that I controlled him up to this point, kind of giving him the foundation for life. Now it's up to him to be able to choose how that is going to be used in his life. But, we oftentimes, when we're raised, we put on a mask, we take on belief systems that go along with the people that are raising us, the group that is around us. And so sometimes we actually wear a mask when we don't know we're wearing a mask, because we've just gotten so accustomed to that. And that kind of goes along with, I think, a story I told once before about, is the hamburger that you eat the hamburger that you choose and love, or is it the hamburger that your mother always made for you with the ketchup on it and no mustard, and you've been eating it your whole life and saying that's my favorite hamburger, but you've never even tried a hamburger with ketchup and mustard and lettuce and tomato? And then the first time you try it, you may say, I really like this and I can't believe it that I've never had it. And then other times you're going to be like, oh my God, I really do like just the hamburger with the ketchup on it. That's a pretty picture that got locked in there, Mr. Brandon.
I am
amazing.
getting every eighth word. I have no idea what you said. I can't. Well, my internet is so bad right now.
That's exactly when it froze. So you're frozen on screen for like 10 seconds with your tongue hanging out and not moving at all.
Good. That's how I like to be seen. I love it. Mary says, I prefer hot dogs. Well played, Mary.
Yes.
I love it. Marie, you were awesome. Marie, that was awesome. Like, she's
awesome. The egg scene in One Way Bride, perfect example of what you're talking about.
Yes, yeah. I think it is.
It really is. And this is, part of what we really talked about in the last was so much about the mask and either hiding behind a mask, not recognizing that we're behind a mask, what we do behind a mask, and what other people do behind a mask that we don't really know the person behind the mask. Those are all the things that we have to sift through in life, because everybody's got a mask on. Just like when you first go out on a date with someone, you're wearing a particular mask. You're wearing this mask of what you think the other person is really going to like. Well, I should say not everybody is, but sometimes people try to conform to what the other person is, and you get into this honeymoon relationship where both of you are kind of wearing a different mask than the mask of reality. Mm-hmm. In order to be able to keep things going, in order to be able to, get the other person to do things for you, or to be able to go to bed with them, or to be able to kiss them, or whatever. You're in this honeymoon scenario. And then after a certain amount of time together, that mask starts to come off. And the person behind the mask is different, which can be more congruent for us because now we're really starting to be ourselves. But it's a different picture than we presented during the honeymoon phase of our relationship. And that's when oftentimes relationships start to break down, or they start to stress out, because now the reality of who we really are is starting to come out. But that's not the person that we first introduced to our partner. Failure to wear a mask on dates, that can be, but that actually can be a good thing. Jeannie, if the person doesn't like you for who you are, do you really want to be with that person? So maybe not wearing a mask when you go out, you're just exposing yourself as who you really are. And if that person appreciates you, great, then that relationship can grow. If that person doesn't appreciate that, then why am I wasting my time with them in the first place? Let's move on and find somebody who does appreciate me for who I really am. And that way I can be congruent and not build stress in my life as I'm trying to walk on eggshells so that I don't do something that they might perceive as not appealing or not correct or not what they want. But when in fact, that's what I really would do if I didn't have my mask on. So I think that that's a really good way to look at life and to recognize that, you don't always have to conform to what others want. And oftentimes when we do, that's when we create stress in our life.
I agree.
I
have a poem. I have a poem. I'm trying to make sure. That's why I'm trying to look it up really quick. Have you ever heard about the Paintbrush Poem from Chicken Soup from the Soul? So, I keep my paintbrush with me wherever I may go, in case I need to cover up so the real me doesn't show. I'm so afraid to show you me, afraid what you'll do, that you might laugh, say mean things. I'm afraid I might lose you. I'd like to remove all my paint coats to show the real true me. But I want you to try to understand. I need you to accept what you see. So you'll be patient. If you'll be patient and close your eyes, I'll strip off my coats real slow. Please understand how much it hurts to let the real me show. Now my coats are all stripped off. I feel naked, bare, and cold. If you still love me with all that you see, you are my friend, pure as gold. I need to save this paintbrush, though, and hold it in my hand. I want to keep it handy in case somebody doesn't understand. So please protect me, my dear friend, and thanks for loving me true. But let me keep my paintbrush with me until I love me too.
Wow. I think that's an amazing I just poem. Felt it. Great insight.
I think that it fit well with what we're going with. It's a beautiful poem that has a Jacob, don't apologize, man. We're glad you're here. We're glad you're playing around, buddy.
And since you're at work, we understand when you got to go back and do what you got to do.
Just put us on speakerphone and we'll say hi to your customers, clients. Maybe it's just some random person. We'll say hi. With Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool, he wears a mask the whole time, whether it's literally with his red mask or is it figuratively behind what he's actually doing with his emotions, his anger, his meanness. Like he's like, oh, the whole time making fun of the other X-Men. And he's picking on other parts of it and saying he wants no part in it. And he throws up his own masks, shields. It's his paintbrushes, the poem would go with, to protect himself. And in my eyes, he's literally throwing these things up there as a shield. So everybody keeps not looking at him. They think he's just an ugly, all around, can't die, creepy guy.
And we see this oftentimes in comedians. Where they get up on stage and they've got their mask that they put on stage, and that mask attracts others. It may cover what's going on behind the scenes in them, but it also commands a respect or an appreciation that they don't feel that they may oftentimes get in real life. When they've created this persona on stage that is amazing and loved by all the fans that follow them. And yet when they go back home and they're by themselves, they don't see that same person that they played on stage. Mm-hmm. And I agree, Jeannie. Sometimes we all hide behind our scars, and those scars are usually emotional scars and scars in our beliefs as opposed to the physical scars. And those are the ones that are also the most difficult to overcome oftentimes. And that's kind of what we're talking about when you're looking at Robin Williams or you're looking at John Belushi and the characters that they were able to portray on screen or on stage and were loved by everybody. And everybody thought that they were just the coolest people in the world. And yet, you know, when they went home, they may not have had that same feeling. Now, you know, Robin Williams had some challenges that were starting to come up in his life that were due to Alzheimer's or something like that was really starting to affect him. And he was concerned about, you know, would his brain be as sharp as it has always been when he's on stage? And anybody who's seen Robin Williams really do Robin Williams, holy crap, trying to keep up with him is like trying to hold on to a starship flying between universes. That's how his mind worked. And that's why he was so funny, but many times we didn't get a chance to even keep up with him. So exactly. The emotional scars are harder to overcome. And even when oftentimes people do experience and get physical scars, it's the emotional scarring that is the most difficult for them to overcome. In the recorded version, I think I talked about one of the safety managers that we had in my logistics company that was all about maintaining safety for everybody in the company. And yet when he went out and rode his motorcycle, he made a mistake, was flying down roads that were, 30 mile an hour with his friends. And then he lost control of his bike and wrapped himself and his bike around a tree and almost lost his legs and did lose pretty much the function of his legs. Mm-hmm. And that scarring was very significant from a physical perspective, but also from the mental perspective. And what eventually happened is the physical part, healed as much as it was going to. There was not going to be a complete recovery from that. But he went from being inside himself because of the emotional scarring. And I think, in fact, he may have lost his family at that time, in terms of the way he was starting to interact with them was taking out a lot of the hurt on those around him. Mm-hmm. And he kind of came back into the industry and tried to get back into the safety realm. But what he ended up getting into is supporting veterans that had disabilities and helping them to understand and how to overcome the challenges. And now his life went from meaning to what he felt was no meaning and nothing left of him to a higher cause that he found in terms of helping veterans to overcome the challenges that they had. So, these things are not insurmountable, but it means that we need to really start to play more in the present than in the past. Oftentimes those emotional scars, in fact, almost all of the times you could say emotional scarring is from the past, right? It's from experiences that we had. Now, how those affect us in the future is up to us. And the way that we can change those is through how we think and act and believe or change our beliefs in the present. And I've said that, the present is the meeting point of the past and the future. So really focus on the present and how you're thinking and how you're acting and question your belief systems. And are they going to, the belief systems of the past, are they really going to serve you in the future? Those are really the ways that we can overcome many of the challenges that we have, that emotional scarring that we have. Now, we went into what tool we applied to Deadpool, and I said a screw meaning the thing that can hold things together, right? When you screw something together, it holds them tight, and you can actually screw that screwdriver tighter to hold things together. But oftentimes things that we did originally screw together and may have served us at one time need to be separated, and you need to unscrew it in order to be able to move forward in the future. For instance, trying to take that analogy, if you built a temporary shelter and you screwed it to your house so that it wouldn't blow away, right?
Right.
But now I want to move that shelter somewhere else. If I don't take that screw out, I can't move that shelter. That shelter served me at one time because that's why I put it there. But now I've got something else I want to put there, but I can't because it's all screwed together. So you've got to also learn how to unscrew things. And the same thing goes for how we tie things together in our life. An event is just an event. It can be traumatic. It can be happy. So we have to, and we often tie those events or screw them together with emotions. Let's see, if you keep turning the screwdriver enough, you strip the head of the screw, and you can't always push someone to do what you need. Right. Well, we cannot actually control what somebody else is going to do, right? The only thing that we can control is what we do. So sometimes we do, though, screw so tight that we strip the head, and it's very difficult for us to unscrew it or to take away that emotional angst that we may have tied to a particular event in our life. And that's holding us back from moving forward. Yeah, we can definitely do that, and we can try to screw the wrong screw into the wrong hole. We end up stripping the screw, and it doesn't hold things together that we want to hold together. So that's what we were kind of talking about in terms of events and meanings and emotions. The event is just an event. It happened. How we screw it together with our emotions and our beliefs is up to us. And oftentimes we don't even recognize that we've done it. What are you about to say, Brandon? You got your mouth open.
I actually think I know where Jeannie was going with this. Is you keep turning the screwdriver enough, you strip the head of the screw. I get where she's going with that. How often do we do that emotionally? A scar that's coming, and we just keep screwing it, and we turn it, and we strip it. And the second part, I agree with what you said. You can't always push someone to do what you need. When you're expecting something, you're not actually screwing that in my eyes. Like you're anticipating something. Where having it be open and not stripping it, are we stripping ourselves emotionally? So I like how she phrased that.
Okay, yeah, I can go along with that 100%. And I think that, oftentimes, even when we go to psychologists, what do they tell you to do? Well, tell me what you're feeling. Tell me your story. And you go in there again, and they say, tell me your story again.
Which thing are you laughing at?
I'm at Mount Buttmore. That's the behind the scenes of Mount Rushmore.
You know what the best part is? My face is right where I could smell them. I didn't even notice that. Sorry, go ahead. I distracted myself. Squirrel.
Yeah, I think we need to change that. I did that. I did that to you one day, and now it's stuck there. I
literally was saw it, and I'm like, what is that? Oh my God.
Actually, I got that picture from Bob Seymour when he drove his scooter around to the backside of Mount Rushmore. That's the picture that he got.
It happens. I mean, I'm just glad he was able to get that. Usually security doesn't let you go around like that.
But, actually that's a bit of a kind of a good metaphor for some of the things that we're talking about here. You know what? Sometimes we only look at things from one direction, and we don't get a chance to really go around to the backside and see what it looks like from a different perspective. Oftentimes when we see things from a different perspective, it changes the meaning in our mind. if that was really what was behind Mount Rushmore, would Mount Rushmore be this this monument that people go to and honor those 4 men that are in Mount Rushmore? When if you went around to the backside and you saw this, would you have that same level of respect for what Mount Rushmore stood for? I'm not sure. So, but it does say that, you know, if we look at things from different perspectives, we see things in a different light. Those things that have been emotionally scarring to us, when we look at it from only one direction all the time, and if we can disassociate ourselves from that and kind of, instead of being on stage all the time with our mask on, we become the audience, or we become the people that are viewing the audience, viewing the show, we're able to actually change the perspective and how we look at things behind that mask.
That was a good one. Made me
Yes,
laugh.
absolutely. That's awesome, Jeannie.
And Bob is a celebrity. He has no rules. So now, what was the tool I said? I don't even remember what mine was.
I said the screw, you said the screwdriver.
See, so technically we're both right.
Well, technically we work
Jeannie's right.
together. Exactly.
Yeah, like you screw us over while I come in and
unscrew us.
Might be vice versa on that one, just saying. Yeah, you unscrew us. You're always trying to screw us.
What we want to really bring out here in terms of how it fits in our tool belt. There you go again with that tongue thing. Yes, Brandon. How would you like to screw that to your chin?
Oh my gosh, don't even tempt me. I'd want to screw it to my nose.
You know, as a tool that's in our tool belt for life and leadership, the screw and the screwdriver are very important in what we tie together in life. The events that occur in life, the emotions we tie to them, the changing that we can do by unscrewing one event from one emotion and tying it to another emotion. That's taking taking a negative emotion or a negative feeling about an event and looking at it from a different perspective and finding the positive of it, and then screwing that positive aspect to that event, which then changes every event that happened after that in your past. It actually changes that, so that now it looks like your life has been more of a series of successes than a series of failures or a series of frustrations. And that's the important part of the screw and the screwdriver, is that you can back them out. You can tighten them tighter. You can change what they're holding together. Mm-hmm. And in life, that's what we need to be flexible about. We need to recognize that we can change those things. And oftentimes it's an event in the future that gets us to recognize that the event in the past that we tied these negative things to can and should be changed to something that's more positive.
I agree. That's why he gets with his girl at the end.
And exactly. And that's when he also recognizes how he created this, or lost basically 2 years of his life, 2 years of potential enjoyment with his girlfriend, because of the way that he had screwed an event and his perception of the event being so negative that he wouldn't even approach his girlfriend for 2 years. And he lost those 2 years of that potential relationship. Now, this also kind of brings up what I call, 3 mandates in leadership. And remember, everybody is a leader, because we have to lead me, myself, and I. That's, even if that's the only team that you have to lead, you have to lead that. And the first thing is to see things the way that they really are. The event is just an event. The physical event is just a physical event. The meaning we place on the event is up to us.
Correct.
But if we want to change things, we not only need to see that the event was just an event, but we also need to see it the way we really want it to be, or see our future the way we would like it to be, right? We have to have a vision of that in order to be able to kind of see what we need to do in order to be able to change, unscrew some things, screw some things in tighter in order to be able to move in the direction that will take us to where we want it to be. So we have to have a vision of that. And oftentimes we don't. Oftentimes we don't have what we know that we don't want, kind of where our life was, but we don't have a real strong vision of what we want our life to be. And maybe see our reaction as we want it to be. Exactly. Yes. See, one good exercise that you can do is say, okay, here's where I am today. Where do I want to be in 1 year? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be in 10 years? We have this vision, we create this vision. Now work backwards in terms of the actions that you may need to take in order to get there, and find out those things right now that we can change so that we can actually move in the direction that's going to get us to the vision that we have in the future. Or we have a vision that is so locked in we can't adjust to what reality is. There is very strong ties to visions and perspectives that we've lived with for much of our life, if not all of our life. So changing those things oftentimes is like changing your identity. And your mind is very focused on maintaining its identity. So when you start trying to change some identity things that have been such a strong part of your belief system for your life, it can be very, very difficult. It's not impossible, but oftentimes you do need support. You need to have somebody that helps you to envision that new vision, and also somebody who can maybe help you to move in that direction of that new vision. But what I've always felt is that if you constantly focus on what I don't want, you will never achieve what you do want.
Correct. They wanted to read that out loud. They were trying to help.
Okay.
Without vision,
people exist without ever living. Yeah, but you know, one of the things, Bob, that's really interesting is oftentimes when we grow up, we lose our vision, because we forget how to dream. When we were kids, our imaginations were always working, right? You know, no matter, you give a kid a couple pieces of paper and a pencil, and one's going to draw on it, one's going to write on it, one's going to tear up the paper and do something else with it, one's going to stick the pencil in his nose. And so that kids have these imaginations of what it could be. You know, I can be the walrus with two pencils coming out of my nose, or I can be the devil with two pencils coming out of my head. It could be, that's what kids' imaginations do. But as we grow older, we oftentimes lose that imagination because we grew up. And this is why I say we do have to grow old, but you don't have to grow up. And when we do grow up to where a lot of people say, you know, you need to conform, that's when we lose our ability to imagine. That's when we lose our ability to dream. That's when we lose our ability to envision something new. So growing up is absolutely overrated. You have to be let's see.
You have some preconceived notions. You are going to retire at 65, but become disabled at 45. Growing up is overrated.
You should try to see what goes on in this old man's imagination. Yes, Bob. You know, Bob is a visionary too.
That one had me laughing. Sorry, that was a good one, Bob. I know Bob. That's why that one he landed that joke. Good job, Bob.
Absolutely, and that's exactly the type of, you know, Bob's vision is often to keep his mind open to whatever is going to, and allow things to come into his life. he's able to, like, in fact, I was just reading his Facebook page today where he's been up in, and I probably will screw up the way that it's pronounced, Belfouche, I think is what the town is there, where he's been at for a few months now. And Bob normally doesn't let moss grow under his wheels, but he's been there for a while and he's been happy there. But he was saying that today, just driving down the road on his scooter on Bullwinkle, all of a sudden that itch came back that it's time to move on. And that's because he's had his mind open and nothing was really coming in that actually was telling him he should move on. Maybe he needed to be where he was for a while in order to just reground himself so that he can then take himself back on the road in order to help others. You know, it's really sometimes in order to take that mask off, we first have to reground ourselves.
Correct.
And that grounding can be something as physical as taking your shoes off and putting your feet in the grass, in the sand, in the water, and allowing the frequencies of the earth to rebalance with the frequencies in our body. And oftentimes, you know, with the stress and things that we go on, that we experience in life, our bodily frequencies get out of our natural frequencies. And the way that we can get them back in is to spend more time in nature, to reground ourselves. And sometimes that means that we stay in one place for a little while longer and we allow that balancing of the frequencies to happen. And then once they are, it's time to move on. And Bob's got this mission in life, which is to help others. And that means that he moves to where others are, because oftentimes others can't move to where he is. And he goes oftentimes with the way the wind blowing that day. You know, what image came into his mind as the direction that he takes as he's going down the highway, and he had this vision that he's going to go in one direction, and all of a sudden he feels something pulling him in the ramp to head off in another direction, and he follows it. And all of a sudden he runs into whatever it was that was calling him there. And we have that same thing in our lives too. But oftentimes we logically override those rather than to follow our emotions, follow our heart, follow our guts, which again is sometimes we put on this logical mask. I'm one that has lived with that for my whole life, that logic overrides the heart. And it's only been in the past few years that I've really started to recognize that I need to let my heart lead more than my mind lead. And that's how I'm able to better help, in my opinion, help humanity, help the world, is by allowing my heart to lead more, to allow myself to feel that more emotional aspect of me, which I've always been afraid of in the past, because that was kind of that vulnerability thing. And sometimes when we feel vulnerable, we feel that we're not empowered, when in fact, when you're vulnerable is really when you're most empowered. And when you follow your gut is a combination of your heart and your mind and your body telling you in one way, shape, or form, you know, this is the right thing to do or not the right thing to do. You have that gut feeling. And we need to pay attention to those things. And that's what's driven me in the direction that I am now. I had no idea I would be doing these kinds of videos. There was never anything in my mind. It was actually in working with Brandon where this kind of came out, and it ended up being something that was, again, a way that I can hopefully reach others and myself, because when we are helping others, we are also helping ourselves. We're learning. And every day that we're learning, we're growing, not growing older, not growing up, but yeah, we are growing older, but we're growing in our ability to help others around the world and help ourselves. I was just looking, what is this?
And you want me to read it?
I know what The RSD CRPS warrior is we wear masks every day, even though we are in pain 24/7. We don't want to burden people with how we are.
Sorry.
That's okay. Or let people know what is going on with us. We always say we are fine, and in fact, we aren't. When we do let our guards, masks down, most people don't understand, and to be frank, they don't want to. Truth. Because of those masks, friends, family give up on us because they say we cannot be trusted. And oftentimes that's them projecting the fact that they can't trust themselves onto somebody else. So we become abandoned, lonely, depressed. It's very hard to wear that mask. Yeah, there's a lot in that, what Tootie was talking about there. And I think that one of the things is that we do oftentimes wear masks so that we are accepted or feel that we will be accepted. And it's not easy to wear that mask because that's not really who we are. And then when we actually do expose ourselves to who we really are, then they feel like we have violated their trust because that's not the person they got to know behind the mask that we put on in order to feel like they are, we needed that in order for them to accept us.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the key things in life that we have to grow comfortable with is being able to be who we are. And it's tough sometimes. Remember that, the pain of an event or events in life, which oftentimes are a series of events, the pain of those specific events is real. The suffering that we may hang on to for the rest of our lives or our lives up to date is our choice. And that's where we really need to evaluate the emotions and the things that we've tied to the events or the series of events, as traumatic as some of them may be, and look at trying to really find the positives. And sometimes an exercise that can help there is to, write down the negatives. And oftentimes we can write down negatives real fast. But we have to think about the positives. And if you think about the positives and you think about even the small things in our lives that are enjoyable, and you start putting those down on the other side, and you start applying those positive things now to that event that had all these negative things tied to it, you start to look at and realize that we can grow from where we were to where we want to be. But we have to find, sometimes we have to find more pain in order to get us off the dime to make that move. But we need to have that vision in the future, which has these positive things tied to events, which then lead us into our new empowering future. Bob, let's see. Oh,
Bob's getting paged for dinner, and they rang the bell, the dinner bell, and I want to know where he is that they're ringing a dinner bell. I'm on my way. Like, that just sounds like heaven. Brian says, enjoy dinner. Mandy says, hi, everybody. I say, yo, Mandy, how you doing, girl? And then Brian said, hi, Mandy. And Bob said, Brian, I tried to reach a friend, and then it got sad. Brian said, I know. And then our email said, well said, Brett. I don't know who our email is. Welcome, our email.
Yes, welcome. Thank you for tuning in and watching the show. There's a couple other things that I just wanted to tie in before we close up, and it had to do with the 3 mandates of leadership. One was to see things the way that they really are, not the way that we sometimes imagine them to be, and recognize that the event is just an event, and what emotions and meanings we tie to it is up to us. See the way we want the future to be, and then recognize some of the things that we may have to question in our belief systems or change in our unscrew one meaning and screw in a new meaning in order to get us to where we want to be. That's taking the actions or choosing the directions that we need to follow to create this new meaning in life. And oftentimes the new meaning in our future means we disassociate some of the things that we've tied together in the past. Now, the bonus mandate that I have there, and that is something that I think is held through a lot of the comments, and that is stay true to yourself.
Yes.
The thing that creates the most stress in our life is when we become incongruent, meaning that our beliefs and our actions and our words don't match. We put on the mask in order to be a part of whatever group, work, church, life that we're living at the time, but that mask isn't congruent with our feelings inside. So you have two things that you can do. You can either change the mask so that it is more in line with your true feelings, or you can question your belief systems and say, is this serving me today, or do I need to change my belief system to more fit the mask that is me? Mm-hmm. Because oftentimes we get so lost in life that we're not sure if we're wearing a mask or we're not wearing a mask.
True.
So those are the key things that I think we talked about a bit in the recorded version, and I think through the comments and things that have come in through our audience today, our followers, I really thank you all for being here. I love being able to work with what you say because it's a different perspective than what Brandon and I may have been thinking about when we were actually doing the initial review. The key of the initial review is to be able to just kind of bring up, what the movie is, the things that we drew from it, and to get the creative juices flowing in your mind so that when we do the live show, now you can come on and talk about things from your perspective that we can then bring into the picture, because I guarantee I don't know all the answers, but the more that you bring in, the more that, will come out together that will help not only ourselves, but to others that are here as well. So Jeannie, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. Our email, love having you here. Bob, Brian, Lena, Marie. I'm trying to make sure that I don't miss anybody here. Jakob, I know you're back at work. Bradley, thanks all for being here. Looking forward to next week.
Tootie.
Yes, Tootie, thank you as well. Monday, we're going to talk about 3 new movies and choose the one that we're going to go and bring into the live and interactive session next week. So tune in Monday to Java Delight in the morning, and we'll offer up 3 movies that we will then choose one to be able to work on throughout next week. Thanks, everybody. Tootie, Jeannie, thank you for acknowledging Jeannie and her words. Next week's going to be just as amazing, and I really look forward to hearing from everybody, and hopefully invite others as well. Invite others to see this and some of the other recorded stuff that we have for One Square at a Time. Brandon, anything that you want to say in closing?
Oh, you did great, buddy. I was running the show from the back. You were doing good. I was just bringing comments in so that way you could keep the flow going. If I thought something needed to be added, I did. You did a good job. Good episode. I think people enjoyed it. You ready? Tell everybody who sponsored the show.
Yes, so this is Brett Gordon with Businesses Are People Too. This has been One Square at a Time, when we take a look at life and leadership through kind of the analogy of a king on a chessboard, where you can move forward, backwards, or to the sides, but only one square at a time. And we add one tool to your life and leadership tool belt through each one of our shows. And this is Brandon Croucher of Delight Cafe, the only tasteless, odorless, what's the third one?
Color.
Say again?
Colorless
CBD product on the market. It's amazing stuff. It is right here.
Did you color it in? Oh no, that's the Deadpool thing. It turned the green into red.
Yes.
That's funny. All right,
So,
guys. Next week.
Thanks, everybody. We love you and looking forward to talking to you again on Monday and again interactive on next Thursday. Take care, everybody.
Bye, guys.